Hi, this is John Linebaugh, and this is SAT and ACT English Writing and Grammar, Semicolon. What we're covering here, semicolons, what are they and why use them? Why do we need to know this? When should we use them? When shouldn't we use them? And if you like this video, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and click on the little bell in the top right corner for notifications. What's a semicolon? Why use it? It's this thing here, not the arrow. Notice that a semicolon is a comma with a dot over it. And we can use them for the following, them being semicolons. 1. Joining two related sentences without using a comma and a conjunction. 2. Lists where the individual items already contain commas. 3. That's really it. Why do we need to know this? Well, first of all, semicolons are often used in scholarly, that is, academic writing, and other kinds of formal writing. They're also useful when you want to clarify a sentence by tacking on a related sentence. The SAT and ACT both test to see if you know when to use semicolons. You'll be expected to know this when you're at college. You'll be expected to know this after college, and knowing this sort of thing will make you feel smarter. To join two related sentences into one, that's the first use and the main use of a semicolon. By far the most common use of the semicolon is to connect two related sentences, also known as strong clauses or independent clauses, into one sentence. For example, you could start with two sentences such as, studying for the SAT is hard. However, it will pay off in the long run. Then you could use a semicolon to make those two sentences into one. Studying for the SAT is hard, semicolon. However, it will pay off in the long run. Notice you could have also combined the sentences using a comma followed by a conjunction. Studying for the SAT is hard, comma, but it will pay off in the long run. Moving right along, we also use semicolons to separate list items already containing commas. If you have a list of items containing commas, use semicolons to separate the items. Example 1, I plan to travel to New York, comma, New York, semicolon, Chicago, Illinois, semicolon, and San Francisco, California, when I go across the country this summer. So since city and state addresses in the US are separated by commas, if you want to list more than one city and state, you're going to have to use something different from commas to avoid confusion. So that is where the semicolon steps up to the plate and works as a separator in the list. In a different kind of example, example 2 here, the director asked his production assistant to get bread, salami, and cheese from the grocery store, semicolon, pens, comma, notepads, comma, and binder clips from the stationery store, semicolon, and a screwdriver, comma, hammer, comma, and anchor bolts from the hardware store. So notice, since you already listed different items you needed to get at different stores, you have to use something else to separate the three clauses that you're putting together. All right. So moving on to the next. Oops. Those are the only two proper uses of semicolons, certainly the only two that you're going to run across on the SAT or the ACT. So avoid errors. Notice that I used a semicolon here. Okay, those are the only two reasons you need to use a semicolon. It's super easy. If the use isn't one of the two uses I've listed here, it's not right. Dashes can be used in the place of semicolons when you're joining sentences. Other punctuation marks won't work generally. Colons sometimes can also be used. But anyway, for example, don't use a comma instead of a semicolon to join two sentences. That's called a comma splice and it's wrong. I like food, comma, food tastes good is not a sentence, while I like food, semicolon, food tastes good is. Funny how putting a dot over a comma changed poor punctuation to good punctuation in that example. Other semicolon errors to avoid. Don't use a semicolon to connect a dependent clause, that is a sentence fragment, or an adjectival clause, adverbial clause. So, wrong. While I waited for the store to open, semicolon, I checked my email on my smartphone. While makes this first clause here a dependent clause. So while I waited for the store to open, you would just use a comma, not a semicolon. So the right would be, while I waited for the store to open, comma, I checked my email on my smartphone. So again, use a comma here after a dependent clause. So while I waited for my store to open, comma, I checked my email on my smartphone. Don't use semicolons in lists where the items don't already contain commas. So the wrong example here would be, I like apples, semicolons, bananas, semicolons, and pears. No, since there are no commas in apples, bananas, or pears, you don't need semicolons as separators. So the right way to write this sentence would be, I like apples, comma, bananas, comma, and pears. All right. So semicolons versus colons. Colons and semicolons are often used for the same purposes. For example, a colon can be used to set off an explanation after a sentence, but a semicolon could also be used if the explanation is a complete sentence. I like my car, colon, it drives really fast, is actually acceptable. And I like my car, semicolon, it drives really fast, is also acceptable. I would probably use a semicolon, but from what I've looked up, you could actually use the colon there. However, a colon can be used to set off a list or a clarification that is not a complete sentence, while a semicolon cannot. There are only three things you need to be a writer: colon, a pen, comma, some blank paper, comma, and an imagination is right. And so even though a pen, some blank paper, and an imagination is not an independent clause, you can use a colon and set off that explanation or that list. Well, that's a list right there. There are only three things you need to be a writer: semicolon, a pen, comma, some blank paper, comma, and an imagination is wrong because a pen, some blank paper, and an imagination is not a complete sentence, so it would not work as an independent clause that you could use that you could connect with a semicolon. Don't use a semicolon with a conjunction. You can connect two related sentences with a comma and a conjunction, or use a semicolon without a conjunction, but you can't use both. I'd like to help you, comma, but, comma, unfortunately I can't. That's a perfectly good sentence made from two independent clauses. I'd like to help you, semicolon, unfortunately, comma, I can't. This is also a perfectly fine sentence. I'd like to help you, semicolon, but, comma, unfortunately, comma, I can't. That's not correct because you don't need both the semicolon and the conjunction, but, and a comma. So this would not be correct. Watch for this kind of error on the SAT writing and ACT English tests. Did you find this video useful? Please like it and subscribe to this channel. Neither action costs you anything. You'll be alerted about my new videos. Why do I care? It's simple. YouTube doesn't let me share any ad revenue unless I have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours. That's 240,000 minutes of view time in a year. While many people are watching these, I don't have 4,000 hours of watch time. I also don't have anywhere near 1,000 subscribers. For the same reasons, you are not only welcome, but encouraged to share links to this video and put it in playlists, etc. I'm always happy to read and respond to constructive criticism or suggestions for new videos. I do reserve the right to delete comments from and block those who specialize in destructive criticism, trolls, or things that are off topic, spammers, otherwise disturb people. But on a more positive note, thanks for watching. Hope you have a good day. Hope you learned something. Bye.